All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to look at one of the longest, most determined struggles for a national identity that you've probably ever heard of. This is the story of Naga nationalism, a really complex history of resistance, of politics, and of an undying quest to keep a unique culture alive. I want to start with just one number, 99.9%. Think about that. Back in 1951, this was the percentage of Naga people who voted yes in a plebiscite, basically a public referendum, on a single crucial question: should they be independent from India? I mean, that's about as close to unanimous as you can get. So you see a number like that, and you have to ask, what is the story here? Where did this incredible conviction come from? Because let me tell you, this was not something that just happened overnight. To really understand it, we have to go way back, way before modern India was even formed. You see, the roots of Naga identity, this deep desire for self-governance, they go really, really deep. Their first major conflicts with an outside power weren't with India at all. It was with the British Empire. And this period, this colonial encounter, is absolutely critical to understanding everything that came after. Okay, so this is key to their whole identity. Traditionally, Naga society wasn't a kingdom with a single ruler. It was made up of fiercely independent villages. Each one was basically its own little democracy, run by a council of elders. There was no royal family, no single lineage that was considered superior, and maybe most importantly, as one source points out, the Nagas had never been ruled by any foreign power before the British showed up. This long, long history of self-rule is the bedrock of who they are. So this timeline kind of maps out how that whole encounter went down. You see the first contact right there in 1832. For the next few decades, it was a messy period of expeditions and conflicts, which all came to a head in 1879 with the massive Angami revolt. By 1881, the British had officially taken control, creating the Naga Hills district. But look further down the line to 1929. The desire for self-determination didn't go away. It just found a new voice. And that 1879 revolt, wow, this was a pivotal moment. This wasn't just some small skirmish, it was a full-on rebellion. It was led by the powerful village of Khonoma, and Naga warriors actually killed the top British official in the area and laid siege to the British headquarters in Kohima. It was just this clear, violent message: we reject foreign control, and we will fight to protect our sovereignty. Decades later, the resistance took a different form. A new generation of educated Nagas formed something called the Naga Club, and this time, their weapons were words. When a British commission came to India in 1929 to talk about political reforms, the club gave them this memorandum, and this quote says it all. It's really the first formal written demand for self-determination. The message was crystal clear: when you British leave, just leave us alone, the way we were before you came. And this brings us into the modern era of the movement, and to its most famous leader, Angami Zapu Phizo. After the British left India, it was Phizo who would really take this long history of resistance and give it a modern political voice through an organization called the Naga National Council, or the NNC. So the NNC gets formed in 1946, and they move fast. Just as the British are packing their bags, the NNC makes this incredibly bold move. On August 14th, 1947, that's one day before India's independence, they declare Naga independence. They even sent telegrams to the UN. Then, to back up that claim with the will of the people, they organized that massive plebiscite in 1951. And this quote from a speech Phizo gave on the day of that vote, it just perfectly captures how they felt. It was this deep sense of being abandoned by the British and then just handed over to a new authority they hadn't chosen. For Phizo, this wasn't about seceding from India, it was about continuing an independence they felt they had never, ever willingly given up. And let's just look at that result one more time. To the NNC and to Phizo, this was it. This was their sacred democratic mandate. They saw this 99.9% vote as undeniable proof to India and proof to the entire world of their unified demand for their own sovereign nation. But the Indian government didn't recognize their declaration, and so the Naga struggle entered a whole new phase. Starting in the mid-1950s, the movement began fighting a war on two fronts: an armed conflict in the hills of Nagaland, and at the same time, a diplomatic campaign on the world stage. So let's break this down. You've got two things happening at once. Back home, in the Naga Hills, the NNC's armed wing starts a guerrilla war against the Indian army. They even set up their own parallel government. Meanwhile, Phizo himself manages to escape to London in 1960, and from there he tries to take their cause global, appealing to the UN, talking to human rights groups, getting support from influential people in the West. It was a classic dual strategy: fight on the ground and try to win hearts and minds abroad. And that brings us to this one single meeting in 1977 that just perfectly illustrates the giant, unbridgeable gap between the two sides. A.Z. Phizo, still living in exile in London, actually got a face-to-face meeting with the Prime Minister of India at the time, Morarji Desai. So, in this meeting, Phizo makes his case. And he starts with what he thinks is his strongest argument. He brings up a claim that Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the Indian nation, had personally promised a Naga delegation that they would not be forced to join the new Indian Union. Desai's response was just blunt. He completely dismissed it. He basically told Phizo, "Don't you dare bring up Gandhi's name to me. I knew him much better than you." I mean, right there, you can see there's just no common ground, not even on history they both experienced. So Phizo tries another approach. He tries to talk about the human cost of the conflict, about the suffering of his people. But again, Desai just rejects the entire idea. He argued that it wasn't a popular struggle causing suffering, it was just a few troublemakers. They couldn't even agree on the basic reality of what was happening on the ground. And the meeting ended on this absolutely shocking note. According to the accounts, Desai didn't just disagree with Phizo, he threatened to exterminate all the Naga rebels. At that point, the dialogue had completely collapsed, revealing a diplomatic divide that seemed absolutely impossible to cross. And yet, despite decades of conflict, of failed diplomacy, and even internal splits in the movement, that core idea, the idea of a distinct Naga identity, it's never gone away. So what is it really that has kept this movement going for so long? Well, at the end of that speech back in 1951, Phizo laid out the reasons pretty clearly. And these points, they get right to the heart of it. It's not just about politics or borders on a map. It's about being free to be themselves, to develop their own culture, to control their own education, and to keep their own land, to just live their own lives without anyone else interfering. These 5 things are really the essence of their unyielding quest. And all of this leaves us with a big, final question, doesn't it? The Naga story is just this powerful reminder of how deep a people's identity can run. In our modern world, where borders on a map often seem set in stone, it really makes you wonder, what is the future for any group of people whose main goal is simply to remain distinct?